Last time I've offered a guided meditation on seeing our life from afar, from a realm before time and space. And that was, intended as a helpful contemplation for the end of a particular cycle and for getting ready for the beginning of a new opportunity, for aligning ourselves with truth more consciously. And today I would like to speak a little bit about time, about linear time as contrasted to cyclical or circular time. Most of us are used to operate inside of a linear concept of time, but this has not always been the case. Humans have not always operated in strictly linear time. But it's rather, that our perception has evolved from cyclical or circular patterns of time like moon and seasons to the modern abstract concept of linear time. About 10,000 years ago, when calendars, started to slowly emerge, those cyclical elements have been retained, like New Year's, as we just had, or Christmas or birthdays and things like that. And these, formalized systems have been heavily influenced by religious narratives like Christianity and Judaism, with their powerful frameworks of linear time. From creation to judgment, pushing a beginning to end view and making linear time into a cultural construct within which we are currently all operating. Linear time has become a foundational concept for Western thought, contrasting with cyclical views and deeming those as kind of backwards and primitive. Early humans have tracked time through observable repeating events like day and night, lunar phases, like for example the Buddhist calendar is, according to lunar phases, I shave my head the day before and the day before full moon and the day before new moon, for example. And seasons that operate as circles or spirals, where events repeat in certain patterns on potentially new levels. So it's like we come back to the same thing again and again, but in a changed way. And I'm sure you know that from your own practice. And what's really very beneficial is that this way of looking allows for forgiveness and regeneration by seeing struggles as part of a larger spiral of growth, not just, a dead end. And, the scientific revolution in the 16th and 17th centuries has further cemented the idea of linear time as a uniform, measurable linear progression moving from the past to the future in discrete units like seconds or hours or months, years, that are forever lost. And this is clearly a human invention rather than an innate human operating system from the start. Because early humans operated very differently. And straight line thinking, which emphasizes progress, growth, and goal orientation towards an imagined perfection or a final state. That's the way how we live today mostly. And, there's a sense of stressfulness and rat race in all of this. And a sense of, we can lose time. And we don't want to lose time. Time is money and all of these sayings. So we can learn to step away from this sense of not enoughness exasperated by linear time systems and the relentless ticking of clock time. And there is, of course, occasions for linear time concepts, in particular when it comes to projects and deadlines. Of course, we need that. Whereas cyclical time helps us to understand natural systems better, and with that, our own capacity for attunement to those systems, stewardship and sustainability for the way we live. So we have to bring that back in, that cyclical, circular understanding of time, to balance the linear push towards a goal. So if we can bring those two systems together, we can go deeper and become more responsive and responsible. So learning to relax into the curve of Earth time, where there's a season for everything. We've just a few months ago entered the winter time, the darkness and the slowing down time, which is absolutely necessary, for gestation and metabolization and creating rich soil, from which life can sprout when the time is ready in the spring. And we all know, there's nothing wrong with that, But when we are in our own life in a phase like that, then, we can get really fearful because it looks like there's nothing happening, that I can't show anything. And I know that from my own experience, I want to see something. Or, those beautiful mushrooms which we can see in the forests now with lots of water. They're under the earth, there's the mycelium, doing its thing, and then when the time is right, there's the fruition popping up as a mushroom. And, a day earlier, maybe two, we were there was nothing there, and then suddenly the thing has popped up, but it has been in preparation for a very long time until it was ready to become visible. And that's a reflection, I think, very important for us modern Westerners. When we get stressed, when we want to see results, to just reflect on that image of the mushroom popping up when causes and conditions are right, when they are ready. And I say that very much for myself as well, because I can be caught in that thinking, and then I need to remind myself. So, let's now shift to some meditation. Please find a posture or a way to sit, which you can sustain for about 35 minutes. And allow yourself to drop in. And sensing into what you're bringing today to this meeting, what's happening for you. With the out breath and letting go of any stress, tension you might carry, or tiredness, and letting it drop down into the earth underneath where you are sitting. And with the in-breath, breathing up the stability and the stillness, the power of the earth body, sensing the gravity which gently holds us in place where we are. At a time of great upheaval, I know I was just like on retreat for a few days and hear about all of the crazy things which have happened. We are truly in a time of transition. Polarizing as a way of coping with the difficult experiences. And we are learning to meet those difficult experiences, to contain them with a lot of kindness, compassion, and perseverance. Because we can learn from the earth, that from every end arises a beginning. This is how the earth operates since almost 5 billion years. And we can, connect with that self-regenerative intelligence through our human bodies and through the aliveness we experience when we turn towards it. Remembering that we are cells inside a vast being. A vast being which knows what to do since almost 5 billion years. And we can connect with that intelligence by sensing the aliveness in our bodies, the vibrancy, the vitality which comes to us through eating, drinking, and breathing, and sunshine. So really consciously connecting with that. and breathing into it, creating space. And there's a time for everything. There's a time for resting and hibernation, which is now in the winter time. A time for putting things down. And then there will be a time for action coming again. And you all know the saying by Aloka Earth Room, times are urgent, we need to slow down. To really consciously attune and build the resilience to sit in that chaos. Chaos always precedes a new order, and we don't know how long it's going to take. So by looking at time in a different way, increases our ability to relate with the complexity of the present moment. To bring in cyclical, circular times systems. Can help us to be more grounded and stable as we are allowing what needs to happen before there is a possibility for stepping up and doing something. So the time for maturing of our human potential to respond from a place of connectedness, So sensing the aliveness, the vibrancy, vitality in the body. Which comes to us from the greater body of the planet. Through eating, drinking, and breathing. And just at this retreat, I have been sometimes using the meal reflection, which I've learned from Venerable Mahagosananda, who was a Cambodian monk and very involved in the peace walks through the minefields in Cambodia. And he's on record for saying, I am the world and I eat the world. Knowing thus, I understand all the teachings of the Buddha. I am the world and I eat the world. That's such a different way of looking. And it helps us to open up, that linear trajectory of running into the future to some kind of finish line. This is just a concept. And it has some function, of course, but it's not everything. It needs to be balanced. And we need to train ourselves in this way. And we can. We're already doing it. I am the world and I eat the world. and also noticing, where we are coming from. Since, we have landed here on this planet, this lifetime, how many different views we have had and let go. And now coming to this new self-understanding as part of a living, intelligent earth, which is very old, very ancient, and very new. At the same time, new for us. As this starts to emerge into our consciousness through turning towards experience. It's a natural emergence at this time where one paradigm is falling apart and a new one is being born. And these meetings here on Wednesdays are kind of like a midwifing process for that. A willingness to be on that threshold. By simply adding mindfulness and awareness to what's already in our experience, rather than trying to be experiencing something different. If we can say yes, we can drop deeper into that aliveness. being aware of the energy body. And through being with what is, we become aware of the next attuned step. Even we would like to know more than that, but that's all we really need. The next attuned step. That's like a form of metta, loving kindness, and equanimity, peka. And that next step is not a grand gesture, but an unfolding, which comes from the depths of our being, in small coherent steps or acts. That ripple out quietly and consistently. And remaining centered in the centered in the knowing, in the what's called the chitta, the heart mind. And the refuge in Buddha. Knowing what's here. And because this is our first meeting in the new year, I'd would like to encourage you to allow some kind of determination or aspiration become apparent from this place of knowing, for what would help you in the 2026 to be really deeply in touch with your aspiration, with your potential, with your capacity to evolve. What could that be? What kind of encouragement would help you? By looking back where you come from, what you went through last year. And not thinking about it, but allowing it to emerge. An intuitive response, not intellectual. Allowing whatever needs to be known to come through. resting as the knowing. And allowing the old constrictions, the aversion, the turning away from the uncertainty, allowing that to be slowly metabolized and allowed. And in that way making space for new ways of responding and receiving this aliveness. And in the Pali language we have the word aditana, which consists of two parts, adi, higher, and tana, foundation or ground. A determination which helps us to move to a higher ground. It's like a rope, helps us to get up and have a little bit of more of an expanded perception from there. And in particular seeing the process nature. And that urge to evolve. Which can give us the energy to stay in that flow. Without exactly knowing where it's going. But by looking back, a few years ago, where have you been at this time? And can you see your intention starting to manifest in small ways or in big ways? In its own time. not on our time. And that's what's difficult to be with sometimes. The anxiety, the fear which comes up. Then remembering the mushroom, it pops up when it pops up, when it's ready, and causes and conditions are aligned. Patient perseverance. It's the central quality, and we call this gatherings earthworm practice because that's what the earthworm stands for. The humility and the patient perseverance. Which has made this earthworm a keystone species on the planet. Or rather in the planet.